Have you heard of the carnivore diet? If so, what have you heard about it? That everybody that does it is nuts? That everybody that does it is going to die of a heart attack? Or have you heard about all of the people who have reversed their chronic medical conditions? Or all the people who have lost a tremendous amount of weight? All the people who have improved their mental health? I think it's time for Carnivore 101 right here on the Carnivore Science Channel. Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today, let's do Carnivore 101. Let's start from the beginning and go over the basics. What is the carnivore diet? Well, the carnivore diet is a diet that only includes meat, animal products, depending on who you ask. Some people will say that it's basically meat and meat alone. Could be any animal though. As long as it swims, flies, breathes, that sort of thing, it qualifies as carnivore. There are kind of two camps for this. There is the camp that if you do carnivore, you can only do actually the animal itself. There are some that say, dairy products, things like that. Things that come from an animal also are counted in. I think most carnivores kind of look at things like, well, if, you're doing dairy and things like that, it counts. But I really don't know the stats. There is also something called the lion diet that is a part of the carnivore diet. What the lion diet is a true elimination diet. The reason people like carnivore so much is most people who come to carnivore, or a lot of them, have some sort of underlying health condition that they're trying to reverse. And in doing so, you eliminate most things to try to figure out foods and try to figure out what it is that is making you ill. Because if you don't know, the food supply is making you sick. Right now, if you are on standard American diet, the food supply is slowly poisoning you. Takes a long time, it's a slow kill, but it's happening. So a lot of people in their search to try to reverse medical conditions, in particular autoimmune conditions and things, they find this diet because it eliminates all of the things that could possibly be making their inflammation a lot worse. So the lion diet, which is basically ruminant meat, and I hope this is right. I don't think the lion diet is particularly beef, but I think it's ruminant meat, water and salt, and that's it. It could be beef, water and salt, because I know beef is the ideal choice for most people. One of the people who actually did really well on this diet was Mikhaila Peterson. You can look her up. I'll put a link in the description below. She had all kinds of conditions from the age of maybe 6 or something. It was very young in life. She had juvenile, arthritis. And she had horrible experiences with that. And she had to get, I believe, a hip replacement as an adolescent. So all through her life, she suffered from, depression, anxiety, the juvenile arthritis, all of these horrible things, and a lot more. And she ended up doing, long story short, she ended up doing the lion diet and reversing a lot of this. And she's doing really great today. You can look her up and hear her story. Typically, until you start to suffer to a certain degree and the medical establishment cannot help you properly and you're tired of everything, that's kind of when people start to turn to carnivore. So if you're looking to fix some sort of chronic disease problem, or if you're looking to lose weight where you couldn't find a solution for weight gain before, carnivore is something that could potentially really work well for you. So that is what it is. This is the foundation of what we're going to talk about today. So first steps. What do you do and how do you do it when it comes to Carnivore 101? Well, the first thing you have to do, if you are a person who has been on the standard American diet for most of your life, is that you have to come to terms with and admit that you are an addict. If you're an American and you live in this country and you're typical American, you're probably addicted. You might not even realize that you're addicted, but you are addicted to processed hyperpalatable foods. And what do I mean by processed hyperpalatable foods? Well, if you look at things like even ingredients, if you look at flour and sugar, those are hyperpalatable foods. They're ultra processed. When you actually eat something like that, if you're looking at flour and you're looking at sugar, it's such an extreme response on your system. I mean, your insulin is going to go through the roof. You're going to have spikes, and your glucose is going to go crazy. This is something that's very bad for your system. And it's not. I guess a lot of people can really refer to this as starvation foods. Starvation foods are like if you have something like that and it's storable and it lasts for a long time. If the shit really hits the fan and you're about to starve to death, go for it. Just of course you want to live, like you're going to have to survive, obviously. But this is not something you should be eating on a regular basis. It's very bad for your metabolism. It's very bad for your system. Things like pasta, not good. Not good for what it does to your body. Things like that. You got to figure out, number one, first of all, why are you doing this diet, or why are you interested in this diet? Why do you want to do this diet? Why do you want to try it? Are you doing it for health concerns? Are you doing it to lose weight? Are you doing it for some other reason, like mental health? A lot of people have found a lot of relief as far as mental health issues. You have to figure out what is your reason for doing this, because it is a change. It is extreme compared to the standard American diet. If you eat hyperpalatable foods on a regular basis, those foods were engineered to get you hooked so that you can't just stop eating it. I don't know if you're old enough to remember back in the, 70s or 80s, or whenever Lay's potato chips were first released on the market. Their advertising campaign was Lay's potato chips. You can't eat just one. That was true. You can't, because they engineered it to be something that you would actually keep eating and eating and eating. They engineered it so that you would eat tons of them and you would go back for more. These foods are so unnatural, they bypass the ghrelin response in a lot of cases. So basically, that's why you can eat tons and tons and tons of one thing. But like if you go to try to eat a steak, have you ever heard of anybody gorging themselves on steak? Like eating 10 steaks because they are binge eating steak? No, you don't. But you do hear about it with ice cream or sugary things or junk food. Think about it not in terms of willpower or whether or not you think you're a glutton. Even if you don't overdo this stuff, if you crave something really bad, if you have cravings for things and you go to food because you're craving food, that means you're addicted to it. You're addicted to a certain type of food. Some people might have more trouble with this than other people. But if you eat the standard American diet, sadly, you are addicted. The first step in fixing a problem is to admit what the problem is. So that is the first piece of advice I'm going to give you. Admit that you have an addiction. Figure out what it is you have an addiction to. What is it that you're hooked on? Think about why you eat. Most people in this country do not know what the word hungry means. There's a difference between being hungry and actually craving something, but we don't know the difference. Because if you eat tons and tons of carbohydrates every day, especially if you eat processed foods, you're just on a cycle of just constant hungry. You're constantly feeling like you're hungry, but it's not hunger. It actually is craving. Number one, admit that you're addicted. Understand that. Number two, what is your goal? Identify your goal, because your plan for moving forward on the carnivore diet is going to be very different depending on what your goal is. For example, if you decide that you want to try to get rid of some medical conditions, you're going to be more likely to go something towards the lion diet, which is, the meat, water, and salt, basically, or the beef, water, and salt. Why, if you're trying to reverse medical conditions, is the carnivore diet ideal for that? Well, because, and why would you do lion diet? Lion diet in particular is where, anyway, just strict carnivore, I guess I would say, is you're eating ruminant animals. Now, ruminant animals are animals that basically have a fermenter digestive system in they have 4 chambers in their stomach, a 4-chambered stomach. There's a lot of processing of the foods that they eat. They eat plants. They basically go through this fermenter digestive system, and a lot of the things that bother people, okay, if they were to eat plants directly or whatever, it's like a lot of the stuff that would be in plants or in other animals that don't have this type of digestive system, it filters out a lot of that so that you don't end up with as many allergens, toxins, things like that. So that is one way that a lot of these people have found relief. Like Mikhaila Peterson's very sensitive to just about anything. Her and her father both have issues with eating certain types of foods. They're very sensitive. So people that are particularly very sensitive to toxins and things, or, just different components in certain plants and things like that, or certain foods, this is the best. Beef is one of the best things for them to eat because of the way that the cow's digestive system processes food and purifies it, kind of. So the muscle meat of the cow is not got a lot of stuff in it, basically, that would affect them. Buffalo, goat, lamb, that sort of thing, and beef, obviously. Those are all ruminant animals. So if you're trying to reverse a medical condition, the best way to try to do it is to shoot for the lion diet, basically. So you're getting rid of everything. It's an elimination diet because you're eliminating anything that could potentially be harmful to you or be causing the problems. And what kind of problems? Okay, if you're looking to reverse health condition, what kind of problems can be reversed? There is so many things that I can't even list them here. There have been accounts from a lot of people. Some people with MS have reported improvements. These are just people who are saying, hey, look, I did the elimination diet and my life started to improve. Things that I had, I had multiple sclerosis and I was wheelchair bound, and I've reversed it to the point to where I can move around and things like that. There's a lot of accounts out there. You just need to do your research and listen to these people. One place that you can go is Dave Mack. I'll link his channel below, and he interviews people and they talk about what things that they have fixed and how their life has improved on the carnivore diet. But things like just me, I had horrible hip pain all of a sudden at 55. I've been a carnivore for 2 years. At 55, I had horrible hip pain, sent me to the ER. And at that point, after having fibromyalgia for 20 years or 50, it was about 20 years, suffering from that, being on medication, having horrible heartburn to the point where it felt like I was having a heart attack. There's so many things that even it helped me. I can't even list them all here for the purpose of this video because it'll make it too long. But all of these, and I'll link my story below and you can hear about all of the things that actually fixed in me. But a lot of people have corrected a lot of issues. So look into it, figure out what it can do, and if you're doing it for health conditions, I would recommend more of a lion diet type of an approach. So let's talk about the path forward. The path forward is different depending on what your particular condition is right now. Because if you are on the standard American diet, junk diet, and you just decide you want to do carnivore, If you just do it cold turkey, sometimes that can be very, very disruptive to your system. For example, I was keto. Now, keto is a very close cousin to carnivore. So when you're doing the keto diet, you have really low carbs that you're taking in. So when you go to carnivore, it's usually a smoother transition. But even for me, I had like months of like really, really bad diarrhea and stuff. And the reason I had that is because my microbiome was damaged from years of abuse and it had to adjust. So that's just something that you go through. Now, and when I say that, I'm not talking about when you get a stomach flu and you have horrible cramps and you're bent over and it hurts really bad and all that kind of stuff. It's not that type of thing. It's just looser stools, basically. The reason for that also is because when you start to consume fat, because you're going to have to consume fatty cuts of meat. The reason you consume fatty cuts of meat is because you need the fat to heal, okay? So you need fat to heal, and it's extremely important for this diet to work properly. Your hormones are made of animal fat is what you would use to make your hormones. It's just very important. I can't stress how important the fat is. A lot of people, because they were trained, for years and years and years that fat is bad and fat is evil, they will avoid fat. They'll cut the fat off. Do not do that when you go on the carnivore diet. It doesn't matter if you're doing it for health. It doesn't matter if you're doing it for weight loss. Either thing depends on that. When you eat fat, contrary to what you've been told, when you eat fat, fat doesn't make you fat. Animal fat, that is. So animal fat does not make you fat. That is not what makes you fat. So, in fact, it's important that you get what you need. Beef and animal meat is the most nutrient-dense food that there is, okay? So, all of that is very important because you want to heal your body. You want to give your body all the nutrients it needs in order for it to function properly. And at the same time, when you're doing this, you're eating the fat, you're satiated, you're full. You don't feel like you need to eat 24/7. You stay fuller longer, which is good, especially when it comes to weight loss. So those are the main tips that I can give you. Is that you eat meat, salt, water, if you're doing lion diet, if you're getting to that point. Now, if you're easing into it, just gradually increase the amount of meat each day. Try to, maybe if you're standard American, try to shoot for maybe keto first, ease into carnivore. And that will probably be a better transition because you're going to have a couple of weeks, if you're going off a standard or SAD diet, as we like to call it, you are going to have some serious withdrawal from sugar and processed food, and it's not going to be fun. It depends. It's longer for some people. I don't know. Sometimes people get over it in a week. But there will be an end to the sugar cravings. You will be able to get through it. But if you cheat, like if you're trying to get over that window and get through the withdrawals, if you cheat, it starts all over again. That's one of the reasons when I quit sugar years ago, like I stayed away from it pretty well because I knew that the minute I put some kind of bread in my mouth or if I ate some kind of sugar, the withdrawal, I'd be jonesing for another hit within minutes, and I did not want that to happen. So I stayed away from sugar pretty well, even before 2022, which is when I actually went carnivore. I was keto before I was actually carnivore, but keto did not fix most of the issues, the health issues I had. I had to go carnivore for that to happen. But you got to get through the sugar withdrawals. You might have digestive upsets. So when you do carnivore, you don't do it for a night or a day. You need to do it for 30 to 90 days at least, because it's different for each person and what their system is like, what their health status is. You need to actually give it a chance to work. So what foods are we talking about? Well, if you're going to go ease keto into carnivore, what you're talking about, let's say you're going to do that. What you're talking about is things that are actual food. Most of what you're eating if you're on standard American diet isn't food. If you can't pronounce it, or you think you have to have a degree to be able to pronounce it or understand what it is, it's not food. Anything in the middle of the grocery store is off limits. Anything in the frozen food section, unless it's frozen, just straight up vegetables with nothing in it, is off limits. Anything's artificial, which is everything in the grocery store, except for meats, vegetables, if you're doing the keto first. So if you look at a lot of the fruits and vegetables, that if you're going to go keto first and then move on to carnivore, you have to really pay attention to what is the carbohydrate content of certain vegetables. You don't go for the starchy vegetables or the vegetables with a lot of sugar. Like if you're looking at carrots, for example, they have a decent amount of sugar in them. Potatoes, obviously, are very high in carbohydrates. Beans, very high in carbohydrates. Because keto is limiting your carbohydrates for 20 and under grams a day, which is very little for, that. It's a big difference between standard American. So if you're doing that, and also milk and things like that, even though that would be like from an animal or whatever, milk has a lot of sugars in it, and heavy cream and things like that, I would warn you, stay away from the heavy cream if you're trying to lose weight, or if you're worried about autoimmune things, because milk sometimes can cause inflammation in some people. The heavy cream, I had a problem with heavy cream. Like I was eating heavy cream, and I dropped heavy cream and lost like 13 pounds in 2.5 weeks, just dropping out heavy cream. And all I was doing was putting it in coffee. Just as an example of actual weight gain, for whatever reason. That has other things in it. And it also made me crave it. It has casomorphins in it, and that causes you to crave it. So that was something I didn't want a part of. But if you're eating keto, meats and things like that, just make sure you get enough fat. Fat is really important. One piece of advice, if you do go keto, if you're headed towards carnivore and you want to do keto first because you need to ease into it, do not, under any circumstances, go dirty with keto. It always ends in disaster. And what is dirty keto? Dirty keto is all of these brownies, keto bread. There's no such thing as keto bread. That is an oxymoron. That makes no sense. It'll say, oh, it has 17 grams of carbs, but it really has 2 net carbs because fiber. This is crap. This is not true. And especially if you are if you're trying to lose weight, forget about it. Do not go dirty keto. You'll see chocolate bars. You'll see everything under the sun. It'd be like, oh my God, if I wasn't telling you this and you just kind of went looking for keto things, you would think that you were in heaven. Oh my God, I can eat all the crap that I used to eat on standard American diet and I'll lose weight. No, you won't. It is not going to do that. It actually, it's very bad for you. The chemicals in all the food is very bad for you, and it doesn't seem to do a damn thing about helping you lose weight. It seems to be just as bad as the sugary stuff. So don't do dirty keto. It is a mistake. It sends you down a wrong road. The stuff that you're eating will make you crave it, and you'll overeat. Another tool you can use when trying to head towards the carnivore lifestyle is fasting. When you look at what your options are and you're going from standard American diet, you're going to have these digestive upsets and you're going to have this adjustment period. One of the things you can do is, guess what? Don't put things in your mouth as often. Like, abstain. Whatever hurt anybody from not eating something? I mean, when is anybody ever hurt by not eating stuff as much? That's helpful, actually. I do 1 meal a day. It just makes me happier that way. I don't like eating so much. It makes me feel bad if I eat too many times a day. It doesn't feel natural anymore. And I'm sustained. I'm satiated. I don't need to eat more than once a day. I mean, my body doesn't need it. I listen to my body. Your body will tell you when it works properly. After you get far enough away from standard American diet, your body will tell you when it's hungry or when it needs sustenance. It'll tell you when it's time to go to sleep. You will get sleepy and you will go to sleep and you will sleep. It will tell you what you need. It's just like when you're thirsty, that means you need to drink some water. Your body is not this defective thing that is supposed to fall apart at a young age. It is actually a miraculous organism that will help you live to your fullest if you listen to it, if it works properly, if you don't hijack it and you don't poison it. So, fasting is very helpful. And when I say fasting, I don't mean like, weeks or whatever. I'm saying part of a day, or I don't know, some people do a couple of day fasts, like water fasts or whatever. Which gets me to my next point. One of the things you're going to need to do if you're transitioning to a keto and or carnivore or on the way to carnivore, you're going to need to make sure that you get enough salt and or electrolytes. Electrolyte mixes are very helpful. You get something when you first actually start changing the way you eat. If you are on standard American, you go to keto or you go to carnivore, you're going to get what's called, a lot of times, keto flu is what they refer to it as, where if you used to be eating a lot of, used to be consuming a lot of things, all that just constantly, just a big petri dish full of stuff. And it was easier to get, make sure your electrolytes stay in balance, because you're usually, taking in a lot of sodium, a lot of bad things too. But when you actually cut all of that off, you have to make sure you think about the fact that you need to eat a certain amount of salt. And this depends on what you're going to be eating. Like, because, if you're eating the right amount of steak and fat and things like that, like, you shouldn't have a problem with any kind of electrolyte imbalance. But, when in the beginnings, it's just harder. It's really harder to, the change is really what's causing that. Is the drastic change from one diet to another, or one lifestyle to another. So it helped me a lot. I got a very clean version of electrolyte powder that I make like this lemonade stuff in, and I make sure it's clean though. It does have a little bit of sweetness to it, which is from stevia, which is a very purified extract of stevia, which is the only sweetener. I'm trying to not do sweeteners. In the future, I'm eliminating them. Right now, I do drink tea and coffee, a very, very, very dilute version of tea, because I don't want what these things called oxalates, which can cause problems in the future. Tea has, a decent amount of oxalates in it, so I drink very, very dilute tea. It's something I'm going to phase out over time, but I haven't gotten rid of it yet. And I also drink coffee, but I only drink 2 cups a day. One in the morning, one in the middle of the afternoon. And the reason I do that is because it is a good vehicle for butter. One of the things you will notice, if you get through all of this, the rough patch that you may or may not experience, depending on your situation, is you will start to become what is called fat adapted if you're eating a low enough amount of carbohydrates. Fat adaptation is where you're burning a lot of ketones instead of glucose for fuel. My ketones, I check my ketones. You can check your blood ketones. I have a device called Keto Mojo where I check my blood glucose and blood ketones like here and there, just to kind of track them. And I noticed that when actually I am extremely hyper focused and I have the most clarity and I feel like Superman good. I mean, sometimes, when you eat this way, you feel like Superman good a lot of the times. I've heard this from a lot of people. And I've noticed that when I test my blood, I notice that my ketones are extremely high. They're like 5 or so when I actually feel hyper-focused, kind of like. But either way, like, you don't have to test your blood or nothing like that. If you don't eat a lot of carbs, you're going to become fat adapted, and you're going to, or if you minimize them especially, you're going to actually get the brain boost that comes with it. So that is one of the actual pluses. Now, you will notice, that in the beginning, also, you can have energy issues, like in the very beginning when you actually transition. You can have issues with energy. You might feel tired sometimes, that kind of thing, when you're getting used to everything. Because keep in mind, If you've been on the standard American diet for like 10 to 20, 30 years, you know, you took 30 years to screw yourself up, screw the microbiome up, poison yourself. Essentially, you didn't know you were doing it, but it's like it took that long to do this damage. It's going to be a hot minute for you to undo it, you know. So change of any kind is you know, sometimes painful, but you know, usually, and what I will tell you, I can, you know, for me, well, and again, I'm a little different because I was kind of keto before I went carnivore, but it was disruptive. It was kind of painful, you know, because I was having all of the digestive problems or whatever from the transition. But 3 days and my most horrible medical issues were resolved. So 3 days, and then another week, tons of other benefits. And then 2 weeks, I went off of, or 2 weeks and some change, I think, maybe a month. I didn't track all this, but within, I'd say a month is safe. A month, I had taken a narcotic for 20 years of my life, 15 to 20 years of my life for fibromyalgia. I don't take it anymore, and I stopped it after about a month. So if that gives you some kind of idea of how effective this was. The last thing I want to go over is extremely important if you want to actually be successful on this way of life. I say way of eating because it's not a diet, like a fad diet. One of the hardest things about this diet is breaking from social and emotional ties, I guess. We are raised in this country to rally around the dinner table, to rally around food. Everything that you do usually involves food. Birthday parties, Christmas, Thanksgiving. I mean, Thanksgiving is a holiday that's only about food. People eat for entertainment. They eat for enjoyment. They're eating for pleasure. They're eating for sport. This is not, in my opinion, healthy. Because a lot of times, like, you know, we're eating when we're not even hungry. We're eating because, I know I did, I wanted to put things in my mouth. There were things that I wanted to eat because I wanted to taste them. I wanted to have the experience. Not necessarily because I'm hungry. I didn't eat for fuel. I ate for fun. I ate because I was bored. I ate because I was sad. I ate because, I don't know, just because it was there. That's a problem. And that has caused, well, it's not caused, but the obesity epidemic in this country is out of control. The stuff in the food that we eat, it's not food. The stuff in the middle of the grocery store is frankenfood. I don't even like calling it that. It's got the word food in it. Keto people will listen to now. It's more mainstream, and people will be like, yeah, keto. I mean, okay. But carnivore, people are going to act like you're nuts. Your family members will probably treat you like you're nuts. Everybody's going to tell you it's unhealthy. Everybody's going to tell you that you're going to die. Everybody's going to tell you need your vegetables. Even though we do not have a fermenter digestive system and you barely get any nutrients out of the vegetables, and even if you did, they're genetically modified and they are giant sugar bombs, whereas 100 years ago they didn't look like that. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. But people will tell you a lot of things. Also, they'll treat you differently because, you know, I've had people get annoyed at me when, you know, friends would want me to go to dinner with them, and then they're like, oh yeah, never mind, like, she's not going to eat anything. So if you're in a group let's say you're in a group of people, right? And nowadays, like, it's pretty clear, and it's even going mainstream, that the additives in our food make you sick, right? That they're bad, you shouldn't eat them. Like, you shouldn't eat dyes. Dyes in particular are heinous. And then you have a group of friends that are eating a bunch of junk, right? And you're at a party. And they ask you why you're not eating the stuff they're eating. And you tell them, well, I had medical conditions and it was due to the additives in the food, all the stuff in the food, you know, caused this and that and the other thing, and I eliminated it, and all my problems, went away. If you think about the fact that most of the people that you're around are addicted to food, they're addicted to these foods. They don't want to know that, because you're in denial at a certain point. You don't want to know that all these foods are causing all these issues, because you're going to have to acknowledge it and you're going to do something about it. So a lot of this is when it's discussed, is people have to be ready to want to change. People have to be ready to want to fix their issues. People have to be ready. Something has to make them make the decision. So it just depends, But a lot of people will lash out at you because, this is the way it's always been. This is the acceptable addiction. In the end, you must reconcile this emotional and social impact that this is going to have on you. Emotionally, when you actually get past the withdrawals and you become more fat adapted and you're settled and everything's working, you're getting the results you want, you're still going to have to deal with the social impact of your new lifestyle, because it will impact you. It'll kind of bother you at times. It's just something that you got to figure out how to deal with. Like when you go to Thanksgiving and there's like 400 people there and everybody's eating all the crap, and there you go with just a little bit of turkey on your plate. And everybody starts looking at you and stuff like that. It can be difficult. And they ask the questions, or are you sick? Why aren't you eating? Or a little bit won't hurt you. Yeah, it will. But also the emotional aspect of this is, you remember fondly like eating certain things, especially if you're well into carnivore. You remember fondly eating things. You remember eating birthday cake, and you remember loving a lot of this stuff. And it's something that you've lost, and it was so connected to all of the activities and the events in your life. It's almost morphed with those things. So it's so morphed into your memories that there's an emotional loss. There's kind of a loss there, something that you feel like you've lost. Because when you move from the standard American diet to this diet, there's a little bit of a grieving kind of thing that goes on, because even though you've left all that crap behind and it was making your life miserable, and you're very happy that you have found relief, and that outweighs all of the emotional side of it. But there is an emotional side that a lot of people don't bring up, and it is significant. So just be prepared for all of this. One final tip is that plan ahead. Have what you need to eat on hand. Get yourself a bunch of ribeyes or a bunch of hamburger meat and freeze it. Vacuum packers are excellent. I don't know how to live without it. So that I can vacuum pack my meat so it doesn't get freezer burn. Also, in the beginning especially, have a plan B. Have a break glass in case of emergency type of item. Here's an example. Sometimes you might have some early onset, early in your journey, you'll have sugar cravings or some kind of weird craving, and you're going to need something. I need something else. I need something. And you don't want to fall off the wagon and eat some kind of French silk pie or some crap like that. You don't want to fall too hard. There are things like LMNT has this. This is just an example of something. LMNT has this salted caramel type. It's like an electrolyte mix that you can add to, you can put it in hot water and make like a cocoa type of thing. It has a little bit of stevia in it. It's pretty good. I add it to coffee sometimes, periodically. And it's something, it's got like a chocolatey flavor to it. Now, it's something that can, make you feel like you're satisfying some kind of weird craving or something like that, but without having to, eat something god awful. It stops you from making some terrible mistake. A lot of people look at it and it's like, well, you know, I guess it's got cacao in it or something. Like, it's got a small amount of ingredients, but it's got like one carb, I think. I think it's like one carb. But you know, it's insignificant the amount of stuff it has in it. If it stops you from making a horrible mistake, I think it's a good thing, or could be. It's kind of like with a lot of people when they do weight loss or they start weight loss and they're drinking diet sodas. Diet sodas are not good, really. They're pretty bad. But is it better than, like, if you were used to drinking 20 Cokes every couple of days, you know, and you go to Diet Coke? I mean, is it better than that? Yeah, it kind of is, because you're eliminating at least the sugar. So you can try something like that, or like if you are still a coffee drinker, a lot of people are, even a lot of carnivores, like they keep coffee. But if you're still a coffee drinker, putting butter in your coffee, maybe a little bit of stevia, if you're jonesing for something sweet. So be prepared for the potential cravings. Do something that's less bad. If you're going to fall off in a way that's not as detrimental. You know, but if you do fall off the wagon and you do cheat at some point, you will learn from it, because most people I know who are on carnivore, if they ever do eat something that they know they shouldn't, they pay for it. They suffer, their joint pain comes back, or they gain some more weight, or something. It doesn't go in the right direction. And when you do that, the lesson is very valuable. You learn a very valuable lesson, because you know, you got bad results when you did the thing that you know that you shouldn't have done. So you're less likely, you just get back on the horse and you're less likely to ever do it again, because you'll remember before you start to do it, oh my God, this is not what I want to experience. I don't want to have the after effects of this. So I hope this gives you a lot of really good information to start with. There's a lot more to this, but I wanted to kind of go over the basics. You know, there are some people too, I will say, that when they do carnivore in the beginning, they don't lose weight immediately. Most do, but a lot of people don't lose weight immediately. They either stay the same. There are people that end up gaining at some point, but I think that has more to do with tweaking your diet. You have to figure out what things work for you and what things don't. A lot of people who incorporate dairy will gain weight sometimes, and they have to eliminate that, but they have to learn, for, you know, whatever works for them versus other people. But, you know, you have to figure these things out. It's kind of trial and error in some cases when it comes to like which things you can eat. A lot of people with, autoimmune disorders or chronic diseases, they have to figure out whether or not they can eat pork or chicken. They have to figure out if that's going to bother them. They don't know until they try it. Or whether or not cheese or dairy or, you know, eggs. Eggs are something that's really great to eat on carnivore. I highly recommend, if you can eat eggs, if it's not something that'll bother you, eggs are excellent. I love them. I get farm fresh eggs and I love them to death. I try not to eat too many of them though, just because I'm on my last bit of weight, like 10 pounds or so that I'm trying to get rid of. And I feel like, eggs don't really make me gain weight, but it's like I end up losing more when I stick to fatty meat, a fatty cut of beef, like ribeyes or something like that. It just works better for me. So overall, beef just seems to be the ideal. It works great. But again, you know, each person has to figure out what works for them. So, you know, just try it. I hope it works for you like it has for me. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And, you know, I'm hoping that whatever it is you're looking for, that you can find. And if you like the video, please hit like. And if you want to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.